Emperor Cassius's POV. The door to the meeting room groaned as I pushed it open. The scent of old parchment and cold stone met me, familiar, irritating. Grand Duke Regis was already seated inside, wearing that insufferable look he always did. That smug, calculating calm. Like his mind was always turning, sowing some useless seeds no one else could see yet. But that wasn't what mattered now. I didn't waste my breath. Did you catch the bastard? My voice cut through the air like a drawn blade as Theon followed me in. Regis stood, bowed slightly, and answered with infuriating calm, "Maybe yes, your majesty." My brow furrowed as I took my seat. Theon remained standing at my side as confused as me. "Maybe," I echoed. Regis nodded and sank back into his chair. "The web has been traced, your majesty. We followed every whisper, every courier, every bribed priest, and every backdoor conversation." His voice was steady, measured. "It all leads to one man." "Who?" I snapped. "Baron Mortelius Vaughan of the Western Vale." That name. My jaw clenched. That slippery rat. I remembered him well. A greasy little opportunist who clung to court like mildew on stone. I'd already stripped him of trade power 4 winters ago. Apparently that wasn't enough. "He's clever," Regis went on, rising to retrieve a scroll from the end of the table. "Never spoke directly. Used lesser nobles, traveling bards, and even temple acolytes to stir the water. But we pulled the pattern from the chaos." He unrolled the scroll and read aloud. "The child born under the blood moon bears not only imperial blood but also the taint of the forest. Elven blood, cunning and cold. The empire, forged by the gods of war and order, cannot bend to ancient, selfish magic. Should such a creature claim the throne, divine favor shall fracture. The line will break, and ruin shall follow." A silence, sharp and heavy, settled between us. "Just kill that fucking bastard." My voice roared through the chamber, fury burning in my eyes. Theon's voice rang out beside me, hot with rage. "I agree, your majesty. He's challenging her legitimacy before she can even say her full name. This isn't a rumor, it's an assault." Regis gave a nod. "Not only that, your majesty. He's baiting the nobles. Especially those who lost influence when you dissolved the Western Trade Guild. They were already uneasy about your succession decree. Some don't want a single heir. Others want a more fitting one. Meaning one of their own damn spawn," I muttered. Regis nodded. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. It was clear. They dared to question Lavinia. My daughter. My blood. As if the gods who watched my rise would balk at a little elf blood in the veins of a Devereux. As if they didn't already kneel to me, all of them, gods, nobles, and rats alike. "He's not aiming for her." "Not yet," Regis said. "He's softening the court. Stirring fear. A few lords are listening. The same cowards who groaned when you took over the throne. Cowards. Leeches. Of course they'd come slithering back when they smelled vulnerability. An elf blood. That was the tool. That was the blade they thought they could drive between Lavinia and the throne." "Has he named her directly?" I asked. "No. Only referenced. But, clearly. Born in the palace during the blood moon, and elf blood. There's only one child that fits." My hands curled into fists behind my back. I thought of Lavinia. Red-eyed and golden-haired. Running toward me with sticky jam on her fingers and a smile too smug for someone so small. She didn't even understand the world yet, and already they were trying to tear it out from under her feet. Now the monsters had faces, titles, plans, and they dared whisper that she wasn't worthy of the crown she was born to inherit? I exhaled slowly, forcing the fire down. Rage wouldn't serve me. Not yet. And the temple? Watching. Waiting. If enough nobles push for a purity inquiry, they might convene. "Not without my order," I growled. Regis nodded. "Not yet. But Mortelius is playing the long game. Feeding fear. Feeding nationalism. The idea that only pure human blood can carry divine rule. Idiocy." My voice dropped, cold and sharp. The divine didn't crown me. I seized the throne. If they blessed me, it was out of fear or not at all. Some of the old blood don't see it that way. Then kill them all. My eyes burned with fury. Regis sighed, weary but unsurprised, and then I turned to the window, looking down at the capital below. From this height the empire looked peaceful. Obedient. That was the illusion they clung to. Let them believe it. Until the moment I remind them why they feared me in the first place. Send word to Mortalius. I want him in front of me within a day. And if he doesn't come, your majesty? Theon asked. I let out a short laugh, bitter and cold. Then I'll drag him by the tongue he used to poison my daughter's name. Regis bowed. As you command. Silence followed. A thick, heavy sort like the kind before a thunderstorm or an execution. I sighed and noticed he wasn't moving out. He was still there. Sitting. Staring. Furking. My eyes narrowed. Do you have something else to speak about? Speak up fast, I don't have the whole day for you. He tilted his head slightly, that damned knowing glint in his eyes. The kind that always meant trouble. Shui. Yes. But it's not business, Cassius. The use of my name made my stomach twist. Not your majesty. Not emperor. Yes. That meant he was about to step out of line. It's a personal matter, he continued smoothly, folding his hands like he wasn't about to toss a dagger onto the table. I didn't like that tone. I didn't like that smile either. Say it, I warned. It's about the princess. My spine straightened. Every breath I took became razor thin. He kept going like he couldn't see the fire starting to rise behind my eyes. Or maybe he could and he was still going. Osric is growing into a fine young man, Regis begins, his voice casual like we were discussing wine instead of my daughter. He's only 11, but already handles a sword better than half the knights in my garrison. Strong bloodline. Sharp mind. In time he'll inherit my position as Grand Duke. And most importantly, he paused, that smirk deepening. He'll be fiercely loyal to the princess. My eye twitched. Get to your point, Regis, I said, already feeling the pressure behind my temples build. He leaned forward just slightly as if offering a gift. How about, in the coming years, we declare my son and your daughter engaged? Something snapped in me. The sound of steel rang through the chamber before he could finish. My sword was halfway drawn before I even realized I moved. Say her name in the same breath as marriage again, Regis, and I will gut you on this floor. My voice dropped to a guttural snarl, low, deadly, shaking with rage. He didn't move. Because the bastard knew I wouldn't. And Theon? He was standing there casually, arms crossed, a faint, unbothered smile playing on his lips like this was all part of afternoon tea. Come on, Cassius, Regis said with a strained chuckle, trying to shake the air loose. It's a chance to turn our friendship into... You're not my friend, I cut in coldly, not lowering the blade just yet. You're a man I occasionally tolerate over wine because you're Lord Gregor's son. He winced. Ouch. That actually hurt. Good. Still, he had the audacity to keep going, flicking imaginary dust from his sleeve like I hadn't nearly ended his bloodline 2 seconds ago. So, as your loyal companion, he said with a sly grin, why not turn our alliance into something deeper? Stronger. Say, family. I said no. You didn't really say no. You just drew a sword and threatened to kill me. That's how I say no. Regis sighed, long-suffering. Like I was the irrational one for not marrying off my 4-year-old. Think about it, Cassius. Lavinia would be safe. She would gain more influence in the noble court and a stronger claim to popular support. With Osric beside her, she'd have not just the imperial name, but the loyalty of the Western lords and the old military families. Our bloodline has deep roots, you know that. He leaned forward slightly, speaking like a man pitching war strategy, not the hand of my daughter. A marriage alliance between the Devereux line and the House of Everhart would solidify the throne for generations. My family would stand beside her through every political storm. No faction would dare move against her, not with both our banners flying above her head. I didn't answer. Not right away. Because what he said wasn't wrong. Strategically it made sense. But logic doesn't apply to my daughter. So I slowly turned my head toward him, my gaze cold enough to freeze over hell. Do I look like a man who gives a damn about politics when it comes to Lavinia? Regis leaned back in his chair, exhaling like he expected that. I knew you'd say something like this. He gave me a look, equal parts amusement and exasperation. I know politics doesn't matter to you. You have a sword. Use it. We all get it. I narrowed my eyes. He didn't stop. But that doesn't apply to your daughter's life, Cassius. What the hell does that mean? The room fell silent again, but this time, it was the kind that came before a storm. One I knew I wouldn't be able to stop. Emperor Cassius's POV. He didn't stop. But that doesn't apply to your daughter's life, Cassius. What the hell does that mean? The room fell silent again, but this time, it was the kind that came before a storm. One I knew I wouldn't be able to stop. It means just because you chose to avoid marriage and romance like a plague doesn't mean Princess Lavinia will follow your lead. One day she's going to fall in love. My entire body locked up. She will not. Oh, she will. And not with someone you approve of. He leaned forward again, looking far too entertained. Just imagine it, Cassius. One day, a boy on a white horse from another kingdom rides into Ilarion. Maybe he has curly hair. Big eyes. He recites poetry. Princess sees him in the garden. Her heart flutters. They exchange flowers. Letters. Next thing you know, she runs off to his castle like it's a bloody fairy tale. My fingers clenched into fists. I will kill that bastard. Sure, you can kill him. Regis nodded seriously. You'll probably burn his whole kingdom, slaughter his family, and bring Princess back in chains. Very on brand for you. But what then, Cassius? He leaned in, his voice suddenly low. What if your daughter starts to hate you? Something snapped inside me. That word felt like poison. Lavinia, hate me? The mere thought was absurd. Insulting. Terrifying. Regis, that smug bastard, saw it on my face and pressed in with all the elegance of a dagger between ribs. That's why, he said lightly, to avoid such tragic betrayals and melodrama, let's just tie our children together now. Easy solution. No white horses. No random princes. No dead kingdoms. Just me gaining a daughter-in-law I already adore, and you keeping your little princess in the family. He grinned. It's a win-win. My hand on my blade was still. I wanted to rip the grin off his face. But, in that moment my mind betrayed me. I imagined it. Lavinia, older, wearing some frilly gown I hated, smiling at some prissy foreign boy with too perfect hair. She's laughing. Holding his hand. And then she's leaving me. Looking back with tears in her eyes as the carriage rolls away. I'll write to you, Papa, she says sweetly. He never does. She never returns. Because some idiot with roses and rhyming couplets swept her off her feet. And I let it happen. No. My voice came out tight. No. I'll raise every kingdom that tries to send me a suitor. I'll burn every white horse. I'll make poetry illegal. Regis burst out laughing. You'll ban poetry? Yes. I'll hunt down every bard personally. He wiped a tear from the corner of his eye. You're such a tyrant, father. Damn right I am. If keeping my daughter with me makes me a tyrant, then I am. Regis leaned forward again, more serious this time. That's why. I want you to think about my proposal. I went silent. I couldn't stand the thought of Lavinia getting clingy and whispering sweet nonsense to anyone, not even that little brat Osric. But I couldn't deny Regis's words either. I sighed. First catch that bastard Baron. We'll talk about this later. I stood up and glanced toward Theon. And Theon. Yes, your majesty? My jaw tightened. Seal the borders. Do not let any young men on white horses inside Ilarion. And do not let any charming person except me near my daughter. Without waiting for a response, I turned and walked out. Behind me, Theon bowed and said, Yes, my lord. As I walked down the corridor, each step echoed louder than it should have. My mind was a storm, lightning thoughts and thunderous dread. But for my daughter, is it unforgivable? I scowled at the very idea. Lavinia. My little Lavinia. Talking sweetly to some lovesick boy. Blushing. Smiling. Letting him touch her hair, her hair. I stopped mid-step. My fists clenched at my sides. Should I ban marriages? I muttered. A nearby servant, unfortunate enough to be passing by, froze like a deer caught in the crossfire of a dragon's breath. Why, your majesty? Go away, I growled. He bowed so fast I thought his spine would snap. Yes, your majesty. I resumed walking faster now. Marriage. The root of all problems. People become soft when in love. They lost focus. Lost power. Lost everything. Lavinia didn't need that. He had me. She had a palace. An empire. 10,000 soldiers at her command. What could some simpering fool with dimples and flowers possibly offer her? I shook my head, disgusted. Yes. Marriage was a sickness. Perhaps I should issue a royal decree. No one in Ilarion may marry until the age of 60. And even then only with my permission. Signed in blood. Reviewed yearly. Wait, what if someone tried to marry her at 60? My eye twitched. No marriage. Ever. To anyone. And then I sighed. A long, tired sigh that seemed to rattle out of my bones. Looks like I'm losing my mind, I muttered. With that, I turned and headed toward my chambers, where my daughter was waiting for me. Lavinia's POV. I sank deeper into the warm water, letting out a long, contented sigh. It's really good to be a rich kid, especially being a princess. I don't have to do anything. I just get inside and someone will help me scrub my back, bring me sweet-smelling oils, and even comb my hair like I'm some kind of royal goddess. It's like magic. Magic made of gold and silk. I stretched my legs out, watching the bubbles form and pop around me. Everything was just perfect. So perfect, in fact, I almost forgot about the one thing that was bothering me. I furrowed my brows, wondering why he hadn't come back yet. Was he still busy? My thoughts were starting to spiral when, Princess, Nanny's voice came soft yet firm like a gentle warning. It's time to come out now. I blinked, jolting upright in the tub and splashing water everywhere. What? But I want to stay more. I flopped back down with an exaggerated sigh, my arms outstretched dramatically. Nanny, let me stay for a while. Please? I batted my lashes and made the best puppy dog face I could muster, the one that always worked on Papa. I was positive it would work on Nanny too. Nanny, however, didn't seem impressed. She simply folded her arms and stared down at me with an all-too-knowing look. Princess, I really must insist. It's getting late and you'll catch a cold if you stay in there too long. I scoffed and ignored her, sinking deeper into the tub like an overdramatic mermaid. Nanny, just 5 more minutes. And then the... plop. I gasped as I suddenly felt 2 firm hands grab me by the sides and yank me up out of the tub. We've had enough, Princess, Nanny said, her voice no nonsense. I squirmed in her grip, water dripping down my face as I gave her my best pout. But I was just starting to relax. I could stay here all night. Nanny raised an eyebrow and, with a sigh that could rival my own, shook her head. Not if I have anything to say about it. As she set me down on the floor, I stared longingly back at my precious tub. My kingdom of bubbles. Gone. Sigh. I was really having fun in there. People are right. No one can win against Mother in this world. Morella chuckled as she stepped forward with a soft towel, gently drying my hair. You always try to bargain, Princess, but you never win. I was this close to victory today, I said, holding my fingers apart dramatically. Morella just smiled like grown-ups always do when they think they've already won the war. After my hair was a fluffy cloud and I was wrapped in fresh clothes that smelled like heaven, like lavender, sunshine, and maybe magic, I tugged at her sleeve. Did Papa come back? I asked, peeking up at her hopefully. Morella nodded. Yes, Princess. His Majesty has been waiting for you. He's already in bed. My eyes lit up. Really? Without another word, I dashed out of the room, bare feet slapping against the floor, silk sleeves flapping behind me like I was a very tiny, very determined bird. When I reached Papa's chamber, I peeked inside and spotted him sitting on the bed, looking like someone just told him the Empire ran out of coffee. He was in deep thought. The scary kind. Eyebrows furrowed. Jaw tight. Eyes narrowed like he was preparing to declare war on someone. I tiptoed closer. He didn't even notice me. Papa looked pissed and annoyed, and maybe slightly murderous. What happened? Did they catch the man who tried to kidnap me? Did someone step on his cape again? Did the nobles piss him off again? Whatever it was, he looked like he was Your Majesty away from exploding. Well, time to fix that. Papa. I launched myself onto the bed like a missile of love and cuteness. Mission, mood rescue, status, in progress. Lavinia's POV. Papa. I launched myself onto the bed like a missile of love and pure cuteness. Thump. I scrambled up the edge like a tiny, determined climber and flopped beside him with dramatic flair. Papa blinked in surprise just as I began my signature move. Roll, roll, and then hug it. Got you. I giggled, throwing my arms around him. Papa let out a quiet chuckle and returned the hug with that rare warm smile of his. Well, someone's full of energy tonight. I nuzzled into him and beamed. Yup. I feel super duper fresh. I'm gonna sleep with you after so long. His arms tightened slightly around me, his voice gentle. Is that so? Emichum. It was the truth. It had been ages since I got to sneak into bed with Papa. Okay, maybe just a few weeks, but that's practically forever in baby time. His smile stretched a little wider, softening his usually serious face. It was the kind of smile that made him look younger, almost like a regular father and not the terrifying emperor whose glare could silence an entire courtroom. He looked human like this. But then that fleeting smile started to fade. His brow creased again like something heavy had crawled back into his mind. I tilted my head, poking his cheek. Papa, why do you look mad again? Did a noble say something dumb? He blinked, clearly caught off guard. Why would you think that? I rolled my eyes like the little genius I was. Because whenever you meet a noble, you look like you're 5 seconds away from drawing your sword. He was quiet for a beat. Then, that's because they do say dumb things. I knew it. See, even a toddler like me could read him like a picture book. Everyone in the palace knew Papa had a deep, undying hatred for most nobles, and his sword had a dangerously short temper. He patted my head gently. But you don't need to worry about them. I'll take care of everything. I smiled and snuggled in closer. I know. That's why I loved being near Papa. He made the whole world feel smaller. Safer. As long as he was around, nothing scary could touch me. Let's live together forever, okay? I whispered. Just you and me. He froze for a moment. Then slowly he pulled back to look at me. You want to live with me forever? He asked quietly. Why did he sound surprised? Isn't that obvious? Of course. I said with a big grin, throwing my arms open wide. I'll live with Papa for a very, very, very long time. His expression softened, the corners of his eyes crinkling. But then, he said something strange. What about when you get married? Huh? What kind of left-field nonsense was that? I blinked at him like he'd just spoken in Whale. Marriage? I echoed. What's that got to do with anything? He gave a small, serious nod. You'll grow up someday. You'll fall in love. Get married. Move away. His voice sounded oddly grumpy. Wait. What? Excuse me. What kind of nonsense is he uttering, and why does he seem mad now? Marriage means living together, doesn't it? I asked cautiously. He nodded, slow and cautious. Yes. But the way he said it, something felt off. His jaw was tight. His eyes narrowed. Oh. For some reason, talking about this topic made him look ready to flip a banquet table. Wait a second. Could it be? I grinned to myself, quietly giddy. No way. Is my father already jealous at the idea of me getting married? He's acting like I've already eloped with a noble's son and disgraced the family. He might actually explode if I mention someone else holding my hand. Anyway, I can't let him get pissed for a long time. So, I know exactly what I have to do. Then I flashed my brightest, most brilliant smile, the kind that could melt even imperial ice. Then I'll just marry you, Papa. Silence. Absolute, stunned silence. Papa blinked once. Then twice. He stared at me like I'd just declared war on the Empire using a plushie as my sword. You what? I'll marry you. I repeated proudly, puffing out my little chest like a brave soldier reporting for duty. Then we can live together forever. Problem solved. His lips parted slightly, but no words came out. For a moment, the terrifying tyrant who ruled the Illyrian Empire looked like he'd been hit with a rainbow. And then, slowly, gently, he reached out and patted my head. All right, he said, his voice low and warm. I giggled and snuggled into his side with a satisfied hum. Now he wasn't mad anymore. In fact, he looked happy. A tiny smile pulled at the corner of his lips, not smug or forced or annoyed, but soft. Soft in a way that made my chest feel all warm and fizzy like I just swallowed a cup of sunshine. It's time to sleep, Papa said, shifting slightly as he laid me down beside him, pulling the thick blanket over us like a shield against the rest of the world. Then he turned and hugged me close. Hee hee. I let out a sleepy giggle. So warm. I missed this. I really, really missed this. His warmth, his smell, and the way his heartbeat felt like a lullaby. It was the kind of comfort I'd only get from him. Do you feel good? He asked, his voice low and gentle as he began to pat my head with one of those big warm hands of his. Aha, I mumbled, half buried in his chest. Papa is so warm. Your hands feel like a warm sun during the cold winter. He let out a quiet chuckle. Is that so? I guess I'll take that as a compliment. It is a compliment, I insisted, eyes half-lidded. I feel like I'm sleeping on clouds that smell nice. Now you'd better sleep now, he said, amused. Otherwise, you won't be able to wake up tomorrow and your nanny will blame me. I promise I'll wake up. I yawned, snuggling even closer. Eventually, Papa leaned in and pressed a soft kiss to my forehead. Good night, my baby girl. I smiled, already floating in that hazy space between dreams. But I managed to wriggle my way up enough to plant a kiss on his cheek. Dream about me, Papa, I whispered like it was a royal decree. He chuckled again, his hand gently patting my head. All right. Now go back to sleep. Yes, I murmured. As his fingers threaded through my hair in slow, comforting strokes, my body relaxed completely. The world grew quieter, softer, as if wrapping me in cotton. My mind began to slip away into that warm, cozy void called sleep. Yeah, today was a really nice day. The next morning the sun was bright, the garden was breezy, and I, Lavinia Devereux, Princess of the Elorian Empire, was in a very serious negotiation. Holding my precious little basket of cookies, I pointed a firm, crumb-covered finger at the suspiciously round ball of fluff sitting in front of me. Now, Marcia. This is the last one. No more after this. I mean it, I declared with the solemnity of a judge about to pass a royal sentence. Marshmallow blinked at me with his big sparkly eyes, wiggled his pink nose, and chomped the cookie right out of my hand. I gasped. Hey! You didn't even savor it. But before I could scold him properly, he waddled up and, sniff, 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 shoved his greedy little face right into my cookie basket. I yanked it back. No, you cannot. You are already turning into a sugar piglet. Too many sweets will make you slow and squishy. He let out a dramatic little huff, turned around with his fluffy butt in the air, and flopped down like a betrayed noble. Ravik and Morella, who were standing nearby, both chuckled like traitors enjoying a show. I swear, I muttered, glaring at Marshmallow's marshmallow-shaped body. Where did he learn to be such a proud, lazy, food-obsessed beast? Morella raised a brow with a grin and said way too cheerfully, Of course from you, princess. Ha! They say pets pick up their owner's habits and well, she gestured delicately at me, you do spend most of your day lying around like a royal pancake while consuming sweets like it's your only duty. I gasped, clutching my cookie basket as if she'd just insulted my bloodline. Ravik chuckled, and worse, I heard even more chuckles, low, muffled ones, from the bushes around the garden. I flinched and felt like betrayal. Treason. I narrowed my eyes at Morella, lips twitching into a devilish smile. Morella, should I tell Papa what you just said to me? I asked sweetly. Her face drained of color faster than a noble hearing tax season was early. "No, princess. Please have mercy." I giggled like the mischievous little empress in training I was. He might even cancel your extra bonus privileges. No. Victory was mine. Just then I felt Marshmallow's cold nose poking my leg again. He was sniffing the basket like a criminal trying to charm the jury. Marcia. I yanked it away. I already said no more. These ones are for Osric. Marcia let out the saddest sigh in divine history and collapsed again with a dramatic thump, like he was done with this cruel world. And right in the middle of that emotional performance, "Good morning, princess." I blinked and turned, and promptly found myself looking up at Grand Duke Regis. Grand Duke Regis. Morella and Ravik both bowed slightly. I stared at him, and then the Duke knelt down in front of me. His eyes flicked from me to Marshmallow, then back. "Are you feeding cookies to your divine my princess?" he asked in that calm and polite voice. I squinted suspiciously at Marshmallow. The little traitor huffed at me and turned his fluffy butt toward us in protest. "Yes," I finally said, crossing my arms. I tried to sympathize with him by feeding him 2 cookies that I specifically asked to make for Osric. But now he's asking for more. Grand Duke Regis blinked in surprise. "You asked to make special cookies? For Osric?" "Yes," I said proudly, puffing my chest out. "I even didn't taste test them myself." He was quiet for a moment, then gave a rare, gentle smile and reached out to pat my head. "Well done, princess. I hope the 2 of you continue to grow closer." Wait, what? That sounded normal. But why did he say it like he was plotting something? I narrowed my eyes as he stood up and dusted off his cloak. Then, I shall take my leave, princess. Okay, I replied. He turned and walked away. And there it was. The smirk. That mischievous smile creeping onto his face like he'd just witnessed a prophecy unfold or pulled a very complicated prank. Goosebumps crawled up my arms. Is it just me, or is he kind of weird? Then again, no one in this empire is sane. Not the divine beast. Not the knights. Definitely not Papa. And especially not Grand Duke Shady Smile Regis. Lavinia's POV. Clank. Straighten your backs, you useless potato sacks. Why yes, sir. Ah yes. Just another peaceful morning in the Imperial Palace. The familiar cacophony of swords clashing and Ravik's violent voice serenading the knights filled the courtyard like background music. And the rest of the knights were hiding in the bushes, guarding me like secret agents with terrible camouflage. Osric was training as usual. His movements were sharp, focused, almost mesmerizing if you're into that kind of thing. Which I was not. Obviously. Marshmallow, the ever-faithful and extremely distractible divine cat, was having the time of his life swatting at a leaf like it owed him money. Every now and then he'd jump up, startled by his own shadow, then resume his battle against foliage tyranny. I should have been watching Marshmallow. Or the knights. Or, I don't know, maybe doing something productive like throwing breadcrumbs at Osric to test his reflexes. But no. My mind was off in the clouds, tangled in a dilemma far more terrifying than sword practice. The Grand Duke Regis was acting weird. Suspiciously weird. Villain in a murder mystery kind of weird. 2 days ago he was staring at me and Osric during training. And not the usual you're standing wrong stare. Well, it was the deep thoughts brewing, plot intensifying kind of look. The kind you give when you've just decided someone's future without asking them. And then this morning, he just stopped me in the hall, eyes gleaming with unknowable secrets, and said, I hope the two of you continue to grow closer. That's it. That's what he said. But did he really just say that? Or did I feel it in my bones like, you two would make a fine couple someday? Goosebumps. For the first time in a while I got horrified by my own thoughts. For a second there I felt like he's planning to marry me off to Osric. I muttered under my breath, nervous laugh. Then I blinked. I realized I'd said that out loud. And immediately froze like someone had just dumped ice water down my back. Wait. Did I just say them word? In reference to myself. My brain stopped functioning for a solid 3 seconds. Total system error. Please reboot your princess. Then came the slow creeping horror. Me. Getting married. Me. A baby. A 4-year-old baby. Okay, technically a soul on her second life. But let's not get philosophical right now. A tiny, squishy, still-growing princess, being shipped off into matrimony like some kind of dainty trade agreement. To Osric of all people. Not that Osric was awful. He was fine, polite, capable, had decent posture. Not a total idiot, which frankly was rare in boys his age. He's the future hero. I know how these stories go. He's going to ditch me for the female lead eventually. Because that's how the stories flow. Ugh, I groaned, flopping back dramatically on the bench like a wilting maiden in a second-rate opera. Marshmallow, mid-pounce, glanced at me with a confused expression as if to say, Are you okay? Then as usual he decided I wasn't worth it and resumed his war with the leaf. Maybe I was overthinking this. Maybe the Grand Duke just meant to be encouraging? Supportive? Like an over-involved uncle who thinks the kid you sit next to once is your destined soulmate? I puffed out my cheeks and let my legs swing off the bench, kicking at the air. This is ridiculous, I told the wind. No one would try to arrange a marriage for me right now. Right? I narrowed my eyes at the sky. Just in case. Then I sat up, spine straight, and placed a hand over my chest like a noble knight swearing an oath. Yes, I'm right. Of course I'm right. I know Papa. My imperial father. The supreme sword swinger of the Illyrian Empire. Someone dares suggest his little precious Lavinia should get married? All it would take is one twitch of that royal eyebrow and boom, enemy of the crown. He'd draw his sword with that signature dramatic shying, his coat swirling like a thunderstorm, and send the suitor flying halfway to the western provinces. Probably while calmly saying, No. Thank you. No one's marrying me without Papa's approval, I snorted, lifting my head. And by the time I'm actually old enough to think about marriage, Father will still be trying to teach me how to swing a sword without slicing off my own bangs. I sat up straighter and puffed out my chest like a very smug pigeon. I should relax. I've got Papa. He's basically my anti-marriage force field. That's when Osric came jogging back from the training field. His tunic was soaked with sweat, hair clinging to his forehead, and he looked like he'd just gone 10 rounds with Ravik and lost 8 of them. Lavi, what are you thinking? He asked, breathing hard as he wiped his face with his towel. I blinked at him and shrugged, trying to act casual despite the absolute clown parade that had been marching through my brain a minute ago. Nothing. Just some usual thoughts. Osric gave me that slow, suspicious blink like he was mentally trying to figure out if usual thoughts meant snack time, world domination, or something in between. But he just nodded and without another word, plopped down beside me on the bench, saying, I see. Emperor Cassius's POV. Why am I your assistant? Came Theon's voice, drawn out, long-suffering, and dipped in pure despair. I didn't respond right away. I was too busy reviewing the logistics reports from the western provinces, which were, frankly, a disaster. The trade routes were tangled, the grain taxes were suspiciously low, and someone had dared to send me a petition written in Comic Sans. I finally glanced up. Theon was slumped behind my secondary desk, surrounded by a small mountain of paperwork that looked like it might collapse and end his suffering the way he clearly hoped. He had ink smudged on his temple, a loose cravat, and the expression of a man who hadn't seen the sun in 4 days. He looked me dead in the eyes. Can I take a 5-day leave? No, I said flatly, not even bothering to look up again. Why? Why won't you let me take a break? He howled like a wounded animal, dramatically throwing his quill onto the desk. I ignored him. He groaned and slumped in his seat like a rag doll possessed by regret. I should probably just get married and go on a long trip, he muttered under his breath, loud enough for me to hear. That did it. My eye twitched. Utter them word again, Theon, I said coldly, my voice laced with the kind of promise that sent hardened generals running for cover. And I will cancel every single pending leave you've ever earned. Retroactively. What? He gasped, clutching his chest like I'd stabbed him. That's not even legal. I make the laws, I reminded him, calmly dipping my pen into ink. Try me. He whimpered and muttered under his breath. He's a devil. A real devil in emperor's clothing. Vicious. Cold-blooded. I raised a brow but didn't dignify it with a response. Then knock knock. Come in, I said, already bracing myself. And of course he walked in. The smug bastard from last night. Regis Aurelian. The Grand Duke, the ever-smirking, too handsome for his own good menace who was entirely too comfortable pushing my patience. He strode in like he owned the place, his coat immaculate, his boots polished. Then a treacherous thought whispered through my mind. Should I throw him in the dungeon? I can't lose my mind because of him. Greetings, Your Majesty, Regis said with a bow, his voice smooth as silk and about as trustworthy. I didn't bother to look at him at first. Instead, I spoke in a tone cold enough to freeze a bonfire. Did you send word to that barren bastard? He smiled, infuriatingly pleased with himself. Of course I did. I even used red ink for the letter, as a warning. I gave a sharp nod. Red ink from the Imperial Palace wasn't just ink. It was a declaration. A threat wrapped in formal language. He did well. Excellent, I said, eyes narrowing. And I trust you were clear. I want that man on his knees in front of me today. Not tomorrow. Not as soon as possible. Today. Before I run out of mercy and switch to public executions. Regis strolled forward without an ounce of urgency and casually took a seat on the couch like he owned it. Don't worry, he said, crossing one leg over the other. I told him to use his legs and walk here himself or else. He smirked, sharp and wicked. I'll cut off his legs and drag him here. I gave a slow nod, the corners of my mouth twitching ever so slightly. Satisfaction. I knew I could trust you with this. That was when Theon suddenly shot up from behind the mountain of documents like a startled squirrel. But Your Majesty, what if he runs away? He asked, voice tight with worry, and possibly regret for still being alive this morning. Regis didn't even flinch. Relax, he said, glancing at his cufflinks. I've stationed men around his estate. If he tries anything funny, they'll pin him down faster than a rat at a feast and drag him here, screaming and all. Preferably conscious, I added dryly, turning my attention back to the stack of papers that dared to exist on my desk. Theon slowly slumped back into his chair, eyes wide with the haunted look of a man realizing his life choices. This is exactly why I'm being buried alive under paperwork. And I don't pay you to complain, I said flatly, not even glancing up. Get back to work. A beat of silence followed. Then Regis let out a low chuckle, amused and unbothered. I dipped my pen into ink, ready to sign the next execution. Let them run. Let them squirm. But in the end, everyone kneels. Emperor Cassius's POV. I leaned back in my chair with a sigh, letting the weight of my position settle over me like a heavy cloak. Regis sat across from me, his eyes fixed on me with that all-too-familiar intensity. He couldn't hide it. I knew exactly what he was after. Stop staring and speak up, I growled, my voice dripping with the kind of authority only an emperor could muster. Regis leaned forward, an eager glint in his eyes, as if he was about to ask something of great importance. Did you think about it? There it was, the ridiculous notion that had been swirling in his mind for days, slowly poisoning everything around him. The idea that he thought might be somehow acceptable. And yet I allowed the silence to stretch, playing the game, letting him believe I was unaware of his thoughts. What? I asked, a single word laced with mock innocence. Regis's smile was far too wide, far too eager. About our kids, getting engaged to each other. I blinked, a slow, deliberate motion. Then cursed myself inwardly. I really should throw him in the dungeon for a year. Maybe 2, just for his own good. But I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of knowing that. Instead, I let a smirk curve my lips, saying, I did. Regis's eyes practically glowed with excitement. Really? He asked, barely able to contain himself. I nodded, leaning back in my chair with a confidence that was second nature. Yes. I thought. Marriage is a very crucial and sensitive topic. And I cannot decide my daughter's future without her permission. The eagerness in his eyes was unmistakable, like a starving dog waiting for a bone. Oh well, we can just ask them, right? I couldn't believe he was still going with this. A 4-year-old child. I wasn't about to entertain this nonsense. The princess is 4, Theon interjected, his voice calm, rational, everything Regis was not. I'm sure she doesn't know much about marriage. I smirked, leaning forward just a bit, my pride swelling. That's right. My daughter doesn't know about marriage. In fact, she told me just yesterday that she would marry me. Regis blinked, looking utterly lost. She said that. I nodded, my chest puffing out in absurd pride. She did. And it's quite clear that my daughter wishes to stay with me forever. She has no intention of living without me. Regis looked like he wanted to argue, but I wasn't in the mood to listen to his ridiculous reasoning. I raised my hand to silence him before he could speak. But I won't disappoint you. Since you are loyal, and perhaps a friend by your own delusions, I will ask my daughter about it. His eyes nearly popped out of his head. Really? I nodded, leaning back once more, savoring the moment. Yes. I'll ask her when the time is right. Regis, like a dog being dangled its favorite treat, leaned forward, practically vibrating. When will you ask her? I didn't hesitate for even a second. Maybe at her coming-of-age ceremony. For a moment, Regis just stared at me, mouth agape, before he exploded. What? But that's too long. I stared at him, my patience wearing thin. Then do you want me to ask my 4-year-old daughter about her marriage plans, Regis? He froze, instantly shrinking back as if struck. Good. He should understand his place. Regis sank back into the couch, defeated. I knew you would decline my proposal. A small, satisfied smile tugged at the corner of my lips. Good. That means you know me. Regis muttered something under his breath, something about how he really wanted our children to get married. I didn't bother replying. There was nothing to say. Let him stew in his disappointment. I had far more important matters to attend to, matters that didn't involve the foolish dreams of the Grand Duke. Still, I couldn't resist one final thought, my lips curling into an almost imperceptible smirk. As expected, I'll be the one to decide my daughter's future. No one else gets a say in this, no matter how many ridiculous proposals they make. Lavinia's POV. I sat by the window, my tiny feet dangling off the edge of the cushioned bench, staring out at the vast palace grounds. The birds flitted by, the wind made the trees sway, and everything just felt so peaceful. But not in a good way. Gosh. I sighed loudly, slumping over dramatically. I'm so bored. How was this possible? I was four. And yet here I was bored out of my mind. There was so much I could be doing, so many things to explore, but instead I had to sit in this nursery all day. Boring. 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 Then there was a sudden sparkle in my eyes. I know what to do. I jumped up, pumping my tiny fists in the air. I'm going to meet Papa, I announced, filled with a new burst of energy. I strutted toward the door, each step echoing across the marble floor. My tiny shoes went click click click, and in my mind I was already halfway to Papa's arms, being lifted up high and smothered in love. But just as my hand reached the door handle, a large figure appeared in front of me like a boss at the end of a level. No, princess, you cannot. It was Ravik. I blinked up at him. Huh. What was his problem? I tilted my head, asking, why not? Ravik stood there like a castle gate with legs. His Majesty is busy with something important, princess. I suggest you wait for him. Busy? Suspicious. Papa was always busy. He was the emperor after all. But no matter how busy he was, he always made time for me. Before I could launch into an epic debate about parental priorities, Nanny swooped in behind me with her usual "I'm about to lie you" smile. She patted my head and said, Princess, why don't you read some books? Books? I blinked. I squinted at her like a tiny detective. Nanny, I haven't even started my studies yet. And let's be real, I don't plan to for a very long time. She flinched like I'd just slapped her with a hard cover. Double, she stammered. You could look at pictures. Now I narrowed my eyes. This is weird. Why were they so desperate to keep me here? What was going on? Were they hiding something? Was Papa okay? Was the palace being attacked by giant frogs? Probably not, but still. I was a princess, not a porcelain doll. I needed adventure. Excitement. At the very least, I needed Papa. I planted my hands on my hips and gave them my fiercest glare, the kind that could shatter glass or at least crack some nerves. Then an idea hit me. A brilliant, wonderful, genius idea. I grinned like a villain in a bedtime story. Look, it's a UFO. I shouted, pointing dramatically at the ceiling, as if the very air was filled with otherworldly objects. Of course, it was a completely empty ceiling, but my audience, Ravik, Nanny, Morella, and the rest of the servants, looked up at the ceiling as if they had just spotted a flying saucer. Every single one of them. I was totally winning. I mean, honestly, what would a UFO even do in a nursery? Kidnap me for being too cute? Without missing a beat, I bolted. Sorry, Nanny, but I am going to see Papa. I shrieked gleefully, dashing out the door with the speed of a squirrel who just stole a cookie. Behind me, chaos erupted. Princess, no. Wait, come back. It's dangerous. Too late. The great escape had begun. I zoomed down the hallway, my tiny feet slapping against the floor, my giggles echoing like triumphant music. This was the excitement I needed. A chase. A rebellion. An act of pure toddler defiance. As I rounded the corner, I grinned to myself, feeling unstoppable. Gosh, being a princess is way too easy when you're as clever as me. I dashed straight toward Papa's office, already imagining him dropping everything just to scoop me into a hug. But when I reached the door, it was empty. Weird. Just then, I saw a group of knights sprinting down the corridor, toward the throne room. My steps slowed. They looked tense, scared. And they weren't alone. Several nobles I didn't recognize were hurrying behind them, whispering urgently to one another. I tilted my head. Did something happen? Curiosity burning in my chest, I tiptoed after them, my earlier giggles now replaced by quiet breaths. When I reached the throne room, I peeked out from behind a tall pillar. And then I froze. My eyes went wide. My heart dropped. Papa's hands were drenched in blood. Blood that dripped onto the marble floor like something from a nightmare. My lips trembled. My breath caught. Papa, is he injured? I wanted to run to him, but my feet wouldn't move. I was frozen, my heart too loud, my thoughts too quiet. Lavinia's POV. I stared. I didn't blink. I couldn't. My Papa's hands, those warm, gentle hands that always lifted me high in the air, tucked me into bed and brushed my hair, were red. So red. The color dripped from his fingers and splashed onto the cold white floor like spilled paint. Except this wasn't paint. I knew that. My breath hitched. My heart felt like it had slipped and fallen down a long, cold staircase inside my chest. And before I could stop myself, my feet dashed forward on their own. Papa! I cried out, voice shaking, tears clinging to the corners of my eyes. His head turned sharply. Our eyes met. And for a second, just a second, I saw something flicker across Papa's face. Shock? Fear? No, not fear. He never looked afraid. He looked like he didn't know how I got there. Lavinia, he said my name, but it didn't sound like him. It wasn't warm. It wasn't teasing. It was low. Heavy. Pulled. Like a door creaking open in the dark. I didn't notice who was around him. I didn't care. The whole room blurred like spilled ink on parchment. All I could see was him, his face, his hands, that awful red. I grabbed his hand with both of mine, trembling and hiccuping, and said, Papa, does it hurt? There's so much blood, so much. He looked at me then. Really looked. He blinked like he was coming back from somewhere far away and sighed, the kind of sigh that makes your shoulders drop. Lavinia, why are you here? I didn't answer. I just sniffled harder and held tighter. Why are you bleeding? I cried. Why is there so much blood, Papa? Did someone hurt you? I'll punch them. I'll kick them in the knee. Who did it? His lips twitched just a little and his eyes softened the tiniest bit. It's not my blood, he said gently. I blinked. Huh. He raised his hands, still glistening red. Someone, one of the silent knights, stepped in with a cloth and began to carefully wipe them clean. Papa waited, then turned his palms to me. See, he said calmly. It's not mine. I stared at his now clean hands for a moment, then let out the biggest, loudest sigh of relief my tiny lungs could manage. Oh, thank goodness, I said, wiping my own face with the back of my sleeve. So Papa's fine. There was a sudden gasp from around the room. Wait, what? I blinked and looked around for the first time. There were nobles everywhere. Lots of them. Theon and Grandpa Gregor stood near the throne, lips pursed, clearly trying not to laugh. Grand Duke Regis raised an eyebrow in amusement. And Grandpa Thalion, dear silly Grandpa Thalion, was waving both arms at me like I was a celebrity arriving at a parade. I tilted my head and waved back, sniffling. That's when I noticed a man kneeling in front of Papa, pale and trembling. His belly poked out a little over his waistband, and he was holding his left wrist with his right hand, blood dripping from his sleeve like a leaky faucet. Looked like someone had taken one clean swing at his arm. I turned to Papa again, eyes wide. Wait, that's where the blood came from? He nodded. I looked at the bleeding man, then back at Papa, then back at the man again. Oh, I said, nodding slowly like a wise old scholar, my finger tapping my chin. So you swing your sword again? Gasps. Honestly, these nobles really needed to get out more. Why do they keep gasping? I continued seriously, pointing a small, accusing finger at the kneeling, trembling man with a belly so round it looked like he ate a whole melon. Is that man a bad guy? Papa nodded, expression calm. He's the one who tried to kidnap you. My eyes widened, and then narrowed. A slow, fiery rage bloomed in my chest like a spark on dry parchment. So this was the bastard who tried to snatch me on my birthday? I glared at him with all the fury a 4-year-old could summon, which frankly is a terrifying amount. My fists clenched. My nose scrunched. I practically vibrated with righteous fury. The man whimpered. Just as I was imagining throwing a cookie at his eye, flick, Papa's finger tapped my forehead. Ow. I groaned, clutching my head dramatically. Why, Papa, why did you flick my brain? It hurts. He gave me the unimpressed look he always used when I'd done something dumb, like try to eat glue or use my hairbrush as a fork. Then Tyrant Emperor Father mode activated. Why are you here? He demanded, voice sharp and low. I gave Ravik explicit orders not to let you out of the nursery. I blinked up at him, completely unbothered. Then I glanced away, avoiding his eyes. No way was I going to admit I ninja ran out of the nursery. I missed Papa, I said, all soft and innocent. He frowned. That doesn't mean you should be here. This isn't something you should be seeing. I squinted at him, baffled. Spoken by a man who took his daughter to the execution grounds when I was 3 months old and rolled someone's head like a meatball in front of me almost many times. Papa. I began slowly as if explaining something painfully obvious. It's not my first time. I've seen you kill people. More gasps. I swear if someone gasped one more time I'd hand out paper bags for them to breathe into. The way they kept gasping, you'd think this was the first time they'd heard the rumors. Did they not know the emperor took his 3-month-old to an execution ground? Papa let out another sigh, that long, tired sigh of a father wondering where exactly he went wrong. Still he scooped me into his arms like I was something precious and breakable. That doesn't mean you treat this like your daily schedule, he muttered. I stared intently at a crack in the marble floor, trying not to smile. I was bored. I whispered, pouting with full dramatic flair. Life is boring without Papa. He looked down at me completely deadpan. You're 4 years old. Still. Another pause. Another sigh. Then with the care of someone disarming a ticking bomb he gently set me back on the ground. Go to your grandpa Thalion, he said. I'll finish this. I gave a firm, serious nod, chin up, back straight, like a soldier reporting to her commanding officer. Okay. Right on cue, Grandpa Thalion. He was wearing a robe far too flamboyant for the situation, complete with sparkles that caught the blood-stained light, dropped to one knee with open arms. Come to me, my precious sunshine pudding drop. I ran toward him at full speed. Grandpa. I squealed. He scooped me up like a swooping hawk catching a giggling mouse. Oh, my cheeky bee-boo. My little red-eyed menace. I missed you so much. I missed you too, Grandpa. I giggled, letting him twirl me in the air like the whole room wasn't currently soaked in blood and tension. Then, finally, Papa turned his attention back to the man still kneeling before him. Then, Papa began, his voice curling like smoke, dangerous and slow. Shall we continue, Baron Mortelius Vaughn? That fat-bellied toad of a man was clutching his bleeding arm and trembling like a leaf in a hurricane. His face was pale. His eyes were locked onto Papa like he was staring down the Reaper himself. Smart. As he was. Your Majesty, please. The Baron wheezed, bowing so low his jowls nearly touched the blood-slick floor. It was a misunderstanding. I swear I never meant to harm the princess. Papa's voice dropped low, cold, sharp and precise. Sharp enough to cut bone. You hired mercenaries to abduct my daughter. I didn't know it would go so far. Baron Vaughn stammered, shaking like a pudding in a storm. I was drunk, no deceived. I was deceived, Your Majesty. I never meant. Papa took one step forward. Just one. And the Baron nearly hiccuped, like a child on the verge of sobbing. Then Papa continued, almost conversational. I heard you called my daughter cunning. A taint to the throne. What? That bastard. How dare he? My little fist clenched in Grandpa Thalion's arms. If I had fire magic this floor would already be lava. The Baron's panic grew. No. I never did. I never said such a thing. Regis, Papa called sharp and simple. Grand Duke Regis stepped forward like he was walking into a theater, casual and bored, and unfurled a parchment with the flourish of a man announcing a royal performance. He began to read aloud. The child born under the blood moon bears not only imperial blood but also the taint of the forest. Elven blood, cunning and cold. The empire, forged by the gods of war and order, cannot bend to ancient, selfish magic. Should such a creature claim the throne, divine favor shall fracture. The line will break. And ruin shall follow. The audacity. The absolute nerve. Baron Vaughn slammed his head to the floor. I was a fool, Your Majesty. I was a fool. Please forgive me, please. Papa moved forward. Sword in hand. Silent. Then, slash. The Baron screamed, collapsing to the ground, clutching the stump where his other hand used to be. Mercy, Your Majesty. I beg of you, mercy. Spare me. I have sons, daughters. So do I, Papa said. Just one, actually. And I was going to skin you alive for even thinking about harming her. Papa raised his sword again, poised to swing. But then the Baron's wide, bloodshot eyes turned to me. Princess. He gasped. Please, have mercy on me. I have kids to take care of, please. What? Why is he begging me? Seriously, why do all these traitors commit treason and then turn to me with those pitiful eyes like I'm their last hope? Do they think I'm a nice person or something? Which I am, but only to people who are actually nice. Papa paused. His cold gaze slid sideways to me. Do you want to forgive him? He asked. I blinked. Wait, what? Why was I being asked this? Is Papa crazy? Lavinia's POV. Do you want to forgive him? Papa asked, his voice calm and regal, like he hadn't just dropped an emotional bomb into my lap. I blinked. Wait. What? Why was I being asked this? Is Papa crazy? I turned to stare up at him. His Majesty Emperor Cassius Devereaux, Slayer of Kingdoms, Breaker of Spines, and Keeper of my favorite blankets, and tried to process what he just said. And not just him. The entire room. Nobles. Generals. Grandpas. Knights. Everyone was staring at me like I was supposed to deliver some divine verdict. Now, is everyone crazy here? They want a decision from me? A 4-year-old? I looked around the great golden hall. The chandeliers sparkled. The nobles looked like they were holding their breath. The knights stood at full attention. Yup. I guess they are. Meanwhile, Baron Vaughn was still sobbing on his knees, looking like a squashed cabbage. My princess. Have mercy on me. He sniffled, his face slick with tears and, unfortunately, some very aggressive snot. Spare this lowly one. This bastard. Does he think I am stupid? That a few pitiful sobs and groveling words would erase what he'd done? How dare he? Did he think just because I was giggling moments ago I'd forgotten? Forgotten that I almost died? Forgotten how Nanny was attacked, how she bled trying to shield me? Forgotten how Papa didn't visit me for a whole week after that day? A week of silence. A week of wondering. A week of fear. And this coward has the nerve, the audacity, to beg for mercy from the very child he tried to kill? Did he think that just because I was 4 I wouldn't remember? That my rage would fade with my age? Oh, I may be young, but I am my father's daughter. I will never forgive him. Not today. Not tomorrow. Never. No. My voice was cold. Absolute. Final. I stared down at the man groveling on the floor like a worm in silk robes, my crimson eyes narrowed and gleaming with disdain. My cheeks puffed out, not in innocence but in rage barely contained by a 4-year-old's body. I don't forgive you. Silence. Heavy. Dangerous. The kind of silence that makes grown men pray to gods they stopped believing in years ago. You dared to attack me. My voice echoed like a gavel slamming in the imperial courtroom. Grandpa Thalion held me high in his arms, but I kicked my legs with precision, like a general signaling the start of war. You tried to tear me from Papa. You tried to send me away. Gasps rippled through the room like a crack of thunder across a battlefield. Nobles stiffened. Wide eyes. Like I was some forgotten doll. That alone deserves death. My finger shot out like a blade aimed at the Baron's throat. You are a traitor. A coward. A fool. And worst of all, you're boring. Now that insult actually earned a few chokes and muffled shrieks. Theon's hand was halfway to his chest, like he was about to start clapping again. Grandpa Thalion was weeping silently. Nobles were visibly recoiling as if my words had physical weight. Papa's lips twitched. A corner of his mouth curved. Not quite a smile, more like a predator recognizing one of its own. Then he stepped forward, slow and elegant, and asked, "Then what should we do to him?" As if it were a casual matter. As if I weren't rewriting law with every breath. I tilted my chin. My eyes locked onto Baron Vaughn like I was studying an insect under glass. He looked up at me, trembling and snot-covered, praying for mercy in the presence of a child who had none. He should be beheaded in the public square, I declared. Another pause. Then, boom. The throne room exploded into chaos. The Imperial Guards looked like they were witnessing prophecy in real time. I could hear the chants already forming behind their shocked silence. The nobles were clapping in fear of Papa. Long live the princess. The future empress has spoken. Glory to House Devereaux. Theon wiped a tear and whispered, "We need to start recording her decrees." Baron Vaughn wailed, Please. Your Highness." I didn't look at him. He wasn't worth it. But one thing I understood now. Papa didn't gather all these nobles just to punish the Baron. No. This wasn't a lesson for him. This was a warning for everyone. Papa was saying, touch my daughter and your head will roll. And when he asked me what I wanted, he was telling them something else too. That no matter how young I was, for 10 or 20 I was next in line. That if they played dirty with me, tried to scheme behind Papa's back, or treated me like a pawn, then I'd behead them too. With ribbons in my hair. Papa let out a low, dangerous chuckle and patted my head like I'd just recited a flawless political doctrine. Well said, my little son. Grandpa Thalion immediately pulled me into a teary bear hug, rubbing his wrinkled cheek on mine. Oh my, cheeky boo is growing so well. I'm so proud. He sobbed into a handkerchief embroidered with number 1 Grandpa in golden thread. Grandpa Gregor nodded solemnly like he was attending a war meeting. She's a Devereux through and through. Even Grand Duke Regis smiled. Theon wiped a tear and whispered, she really is her father's daughter. Then Papa turned to the Baron, eyes glowing with the kind of fury history books are too afraid to record. You heard the princess. He paused. Then smiled without warmth. A public beheading it is. Nuu. Guards dragged the screaming Baron out while nobles dropped into deep bows, muttering things like, glory to the Devereux line. I can't believe what just happened. Truly she is terrifyingly adorable. Papa took me from Grandpa Thalion's arms and lifted me high into the air like I was a sacred relic and not a sticky 4-year-old. Let the Empire remember this day, he said in a cold, regal voice, when Princess Lavinia Devereux issued her first imperial decree. For some reason I felt proud. And, Papa added, turning toward the crowd with a terrifyingly straight face. Oh, I knew that voice. That was his announcement voice. Why do I suddenly feel like something ridiculous is about to happen? And I hereby declare today a national holiday in celebration of my daughter's first decree. What? Again? Papa, I shrieked, flailing in his arms like an outraged imperial hamster. You already made 3 holidays for me. He didn't even blink. One must honor greatness, he replied solemnly, holding me like I was the crown jewel of an ancient prophecy. Or a very important potato. The nobles, to my horror, didn't question it. Not even a flinch. They just nodded. Like this was normal or maybe used. Then someone in the back shouted, All hail Her Highness, the Princess of Wrath and Justice. Long live her imperial princess, another bellowed. The entire crowd erupted. Applause thundered. A trumpet blared off-key. Confetti cannons were definitely launched. I'm 99% sure someone fainted behind me. Yep. That's Theon. Flat on the floor like a dead fish in a cravat because he's got a lot of work coming. I sighed. Dramatically. Being a princess is exhausting. No one tells you that declaring public executions and managing Papa's unhinged affection takes so much effort. I need juice. And maybe cookies. Decapitating someone really works up an appetite. Papa glanced at me with a soft smile. Let's go, he said gently. I nodded like the tiny tyrant I was. Theon and Grandpa Thalion fell into step behind us, silent and stunned. The hallway gleamed with light from the crystal chandeliers, echoing faintly with the sound of my victorious footsteps. I was still basking in the applause in my head. That's when I spotted them, Ravik and Nanny, standing just near the end of the corridor, both smiling with pride and a touch of awe. Oh, they definitely saw everything. Then Papa stopped mid-step. A sudden pause that made. Papa turned slightly towards Theon. Theon, he said, his voice calm but laced with quiet calculation, how old are the Baron's children? Theon blinked. Pardon. The Baron who dared touch what's mine, Papa clarified, tone like silk over steel. Theon hesitated, clearly wondering where this was going. The son is 12. The daughter, 9 years old, Your Majesty. Papa hummed thoughtfully, rubbing his chin with a dangerous glint in his eyes. Then he said like he was merely discussing tomorrow's weather. Until the daughter turns 16, provide for them using the imperial treasury. Ensure they receive proper education, housing, and security. The Empire will care for them. Silence fell. Even Theon looked like he'd been struck with a lightning bolt. Your Majesty? Papa turned toward me and brushed my cheeks with his thumb. His voice lowered. We don't let the sins of the father bury the children, right? Justice must be sharp but never blind. My small fingers clutched his cloak, heart fluttering with something I couldn't name. That was kind of cool. My Papa is terrifyingly amazing. I leaned in and planted a kiss on his cheek. I love you so much, Papa. I declared loudly and without shame. Papa smiled, the kind of smile that made kingdoms nervous. And what about me, my precious? Grandpa Thalion asked dramatically, clutching his chest like a swooning maiden. I giggled. I love you too, Grandpa. He beamed like he'd just been handed the empire. More than him. Shut up, Papa said. And so we walked on. Behind us, Thean was still frozen, mouth slightly open, eyes wide. Me. I rested my head on Papa's shoulder with a sigh. Being the daughter of a tyrant emperor was exhausting. But maybe, just maybe, it was still worth it. I can't believe a year has passed already since I, Princess Lavinia Devereux, the youngest and arguably most powerful royal in the Illyrian Empire, issued my first royal decree. And now I am already 5. Nothing much happened until after my first royal decree. No wars. No banquets. Just me playing, sleeping, eating, and repeating. But lately, I felt different. Heavier even. Could be the winter blankets. Or gravity. Maybe the world just got heavier and it's not me. Yes. That makes sense. Anyway, it was one of those mornings. The sun shone bright, the birds were chirping like they were in some kind of singing competition, and the palace halls were too peaceful, like something suspicious was about to happen. Up we go, my princess, Nanny cooed in her usual morning has arrived of no choice tone, scooping me up like I weighed nothing. Which I definitely do. Nothing. Not a single gram more than last year. Probably. She plopped me onto the plush stool in front of the mirror and began fluffing my bedhead with her usual terrifying efficiency. We've got a whole new wardrobe to try today. The imperial tailors outdid themselves. Still blinking sleep out of my eyes, I rubbed at my eyes and looked toward the mountain of frills and fabric on the nearby rack. Marsha was still wobbling face down on the bed. He lifted his head then collapsed again. Same Marsha. Same. Why do I need new clothes again? I grumbled, squinting. My last dress still fits. Kind of, mostly. It barely reached your knees, my princess, Nanny chuckled, already yanking off my nightgown with professional speed. You've grown so much in the last few months. Look at these long legs. And your cheeks. So round and precious. I blinked. Wait. Am I taller now? Much taller, she confirmed proudly, holding up a dress. A soft sky blue frock with silver embroidery on the sleeves and hem. It sparkled like starlight and screamed main character energy. I grinned, puffing out my chest. Then that means I'm stronger too. Well, you certainly look sturdier, Morella chimed in innocently, or so it seemed, while holding another armful of gowns. Especially your tummy. It's like a royal cushion now. My eyes widened in horror. Excuse me. Oh, I only meant it affectionately, she sing-songed with a devilish grin. So soft and squishy. Like bread dough. I gasped. Genuinely gasped. I grabbed the sides of the blue frock and looked down at my stomach like it had committed treason. Nanny. Morella's being mean. Nanny, the traitor, was trying to suppress a laugh. It's natural for growing children, my princess. Not satisfied, I turned dramatically to the only person who would tell me the truth. Ravik. Loyal knight. My silent shadow. Ravik. He stiffened. Ravik, I repeated, pointing at my midsection with the seriousness of a royal investigation. Do I look fat to you? He blinked. Well, you see, my princess. He stammered, scratching the back of his neck like a man trapped in a collapsing mine. Good for children to be, a little chubby. Healthy. Very healthy. I gasped so loudly the windows nearly cracked. What? Morella nearly dropped the dresses from laughing. Nanny tried and failed to look scandalized. I am going on a diet, I declared, hands on my hips like a revolutionary leader. No more sweets. No more tarts. No more fluffy rolls with honey butter. Wait, let's not get carried away, Ravik said quickly, visibly sweating. I'll eat carrots. And celery. I marched in a dramatic circle, my dress flouncing like a battle flag. From now on I will eat less. No sugar. Oh, princess, Morella chuckled, shaking her head. You said that last time and then cried over a strawberry pie. That was an emotional day. I shot back. Nanny, now brushing my short golden hair into soft waves, sighed fondly. Our little princess is growing up so quickly. Even her tantrums have more volume now. I'm not throwing a tantrum. I will diet. For real. Of course, your highness, Nanny said gently, combing through a stubborn curl. You can do whatever you want. I nodded firmly. That's right. No more snacks. No more desserts. I was a new woman now. Then, like betrayal itself in human form, Nanny casually added, "Oh, by the way, I heard Chef Aloan baked fresh apple pie this morning." I froze. She continued, smooth as silk. "But since our princess wants to go on a diet, I suppose we should tell the chef to stop." And, no. I yelled before I could stop myself. I mean, I will go on a diet after eating apple pie. The room erupted in laughter. Even Ravik, the silent knight, bit his lip to keep from grinning. I crossed my arms, flustered but firm. How could I miss my apple pie? It's tradition. It would be rude. To the chef. And the apples. Yes, yes, my princess, Nanny chuckled. And so I began my diet. Right after the pie. Maybe. Probably. Eventually. That apple pie? Divine. I rubbed my tummy with great satisfaction, feeling the warm, buttery sweetness still lingering on my tongue. That, I announced to no one in particular, was the best decision of my life. "I thought you were going on a diet," Ravik muttered behind me. "I am," I said proudly. "Starting tomorrow." Probably. With a happy little hum I waddled slightly from the dining hall down the marble corridor, my new sky blue dress fluttering around my knees. I had very important royal duties. Like, visiting Papa. "Where are you going now, Your Highness?" Morella called from somewhere behind me. "To see Papa, of course. I need to show him my new dress and tell him I have grown taller." As I turned the corner, the knights standing outside Papa's chamber spotted me and immediately straightened, their armor clinking in unison. They bowed low. "Good morning, Princess Lavinia." I beamed. "Is Papa inside?" "Yes, Princess," one of them said, smiling kindly. "He's speaking with." Too late. I had already shoved open the grand door with all the strength of a sugared-up toddler on a mission. What I walked into was drama. Papa was sitting in his throne and looked pissed. Across from him was Grandpa Thalion, looking just as stubborn, arms also crossed but with extra grandpa energy. "You're her grandfather," Papa was saying, "but that doesn't mean you can do whatever you want." "Oh, are they arguing?" Grandpa Thalion's jaw tightened. "It's only for a few days, Cassius. I want to introduce my granddaughter to my people. My family. They've been waiting ever since they heard about her." Family? What does he mean?" I froze. Then I did what any normal, curious, very sneaky princess would do. I tiptoed behind a huge pillar and peeked around the side. Ravik whispered sharply, "Princess what?" To Ravik. "I want to surprise them," I lied smoothly. Truth, I just really wanted to eavesdrop. Then Theon stepped forward, all diplomatic and nervous-looking. "Your Majesty," he said cautiously, "how about we send extra knights with the princess? That way." "No." Papa's voice sliced through the air like a sword. "I don't want to take any risk. Nivali is far. How can I send my 5-year-old daughter alone to some distant kingdom?" "Oh, does Grandpa want to take me to his kingdom? We'll use a magic portal." My tiny brain short-circuited. Magic portal. I exploded from behind the pillar like a pie-powered cannonball and yelled, "Magic portal?" All three of them turned to me in horror. "Papa, are we going to Nivali Kingdom? Are we using magic? Am I getting teleported?" I was excited. Papa groaned and covered his face with both hands. "Lavinia." Grandpa Thalion, on the other hand, looked delighted. "There she is. Come here, my precious." I ran forward and clutched Grandpa's cloak like a koala on espresso. "Grandpa, are we going to Nivali? Are we going to teleport?" Like shwoom, into sparkly lights. Papa growled from his throne, eyes glowing with danger. "You're not going anywhere." But Grandpa said magic portal. I waved my arms for dramatic effect. "Which is not happening," Papa snapped, practically spitting fire. Grandpa just gave him a smug look. "It is happening. I already spoke to the Archmage. Preparations have begun." Papa turned slowly, like a villain in a bedtime story. "What did you just say?" Grandpa ignored the volcano building in the room and scooped me up into his arms. "Do you want to come with me to Nivali, little cub?" "Yes. I wanna go." I screamed in excitement. Obviously I wanted to go. I've never seen the world outside the Imperial Palace. The only places I know are the garden, the hallway, and the kitchen. But now, an adventure? A magic portal? I mean, I've only ever seen portals in Avengers. And now I'm gonna go through one for real. With my own body. This is the peak of toddler evolution. Grandpa looked at Papa with the satisfied expression of a man who just won a very spicy political argument. See? My granddaughter wants to visit Navali. I nodded in excitement again. Papa, meanwhile, was still in the middle of a slow burn meltdown. His eye twitched. Is not going anywhere. Not today, not tomorrow, not through a magic portal, not on a unicorn, nowhere. I narrowed my eyes, very serious. Papa, what if I teleport just a little bit? Like, halfway? No. What if I stay for only 5 minutes? No. What if I take Ravik and Morella and my other night groups and I'll be back by dinner? Still no. I crossed my arms, tiny gears turning furiously in my royal brain. Looks like I need to come up with some methods to convince Papa. Very sneaky, very brilliant methods. I want to go through the portal. That's how it started. A simple declaration delivered by me. I raised one arm high like a tiny general leading a rebellion, while my loyal companion, the divine tiger Marsher, who totally looked like a fluffy cat, posed beside me like a mythical beast summoned for war. Osric, who was training nearby, froze mid-swing. Ravik, who was yelling at his knights to stop falling during formations, paused mid-bark. And the knights? The ones who pretended not to be watching? They peeked from behind the bushes like guilty squirrels, sighed in unison and quietly returned to their drills. It was just another Tuesday. Only one person didn't seem surprised. That's my girl, Grandpa Thalion said proudly, puffing up like a peacock in armor. Tell your papa how the spirit of conquest burns in your noble veins. I want to go through the portal. I shouted louder in case the entire capital missed it. Even Marsher joined in. Meow. That's right, Marsher, I nodded solemnly. Let's go. And just like that, I scooped up my divine tiger cat, turned on my heel and charged. Princess. Wait. Ravik yelled behind me, nearly tripping over his own sword. Where are you going? To Papa. No, you shouldn't run, Princess, he bellowed. You might fall. And then it begins. Day 01 royal negotiation begins. Boom. Entrance of doom. I reached Papa's office in record time, probably broke several toddler speed records, and slammed the door open. Bam. Papa. I yelled, bursting in like a very small hurricane. Papa looked up from his stack of very boring papers. His pen froze midair. His eyes narrowed. There was silence. The kind of silence you get when lightning is thinking about whether or not to strike. Even Thien was puzzled. I strutted forward like a warrior demanding tribute, Marsher still in hand. Papa, No. I didn't even say anything yet. No. But. Still no. You don't even know what I was gonna say. You yelled it across the entire palace. I blinked. Oh. Plan A, shock and all equals failure. I turned away dramatically, like a fallen hero who had been wronged by the universe. Let's go, Marsher. He doesn't believe in us. Day 2, the bribery attempt. Today I came prepared. Operation. Emotional manipulation was a go. I shuffled into Papa's office with something hidden behind my back. Grandpa Thalion was peeking from behind the door and I wore my sweetest face. The one I use when I want snacks. Or immunity. Papa. I sang sugar in my voice. I brought you something. Papa looked up from his desk like a man who had just heard thunder in a room with no windows. What did you do? Nothing. It's a gift. Suspicion level. Maximum. What kind of gift? He asked slowly. I revealed the prize with flourish. Chocolate. Papa squinted at it. What kind of chocolate? Your favorite kind, I chirped. The sad dark one. He blinked. Papa stared at the bar. Then at me. Then back at the bar. Thank you. He took it, unwrapped it, cautiously broke off a square, and just as he brought it to his mouth I leapt into his lap. Now can I go to Navali? I beamed. No. Whyy? Because it's dangerous. But I'm brave. It's surrounded by forest. I like trees. It's full of wolves. I like wolves. They like you too. As snacks. I crossed my arms. Papa, you're being petty. I'm being reasonable. See, I declared, the loudest sigh ever sighed. Even Marsher sighed with me. Papa's a cold man. Too cold. He ignored me and Thean chuckled. Day 3. The final ACT, also known as the performance that shook the empire. Today, I went for the drama. I climbed onto Papa's desk. Not beside it. Not in front of it. It. Right on top of all those boring things like tax scrolls, diplomatic memos, and something that said, urgent, border trade crisis. Beneath my tiny feet, the economy. I will now sing the song of my people, I declared, hands on hips like a true artist ready to suffer for her craft. Oh no, Thean muttered from the corner. I took a deep breath, summoned every note I had ever heard in my very short life and began to wail-sing. Musical note, let me go through the portal, or I'll scream for a veer, musical note. I'm not saying birds flew out of the trees and crashed into windows, but Papa looked at me like he was seriously reconsidering his life choices. His pen paused mid-stroke. His jaw clenched. Lavinia. Yes, Papa? I smiled sweetly. You are not going through the portal. I opened my eyes wider. Activate, baby Bambi mode. My lower lip quivered. I sniffled dramatically. I even let one single sparkly tear gather at the corner of my eye for maximum impact. Papa's eye twitched again. But, he muttered, defeated by sheer chaos, you might be able to visit Nivali in the future. When you're older. My eyes lit up. Older like 10? No. 8. No. 6. No. Next week. Papa didn't say anything. He calmly opened a drawer, pulled out a piece of candy, and gently shoved it into my mouth like I was some sort of musical emergency alarm. Bribery successful. For now. Later that night, post-battle recovery. I lay curled up in my bed, arms around Marsher, who was also recovering from emotional damage. His tail had fluffed during the second verse. I was so close, I whispered into my pillow. Next time I'll try tears and my handmade cookies at the same time. Just then the door creaked open. Papa stepped in. His eyes landed on me. And then he sighed. That long tired sigh. The one that says, I have fought and conquered kingdoms, rebels and nobles, but this toddler will be the end of me. He walked over, now dressed in his soft nighttime shirt instead of the big black cloak of doom. Quietly he slipped under the covers and scooped me into his arms, the way he always did, like I was the most exhausting treasure he'd ever owned. I nuzzled against his chest. So warm. Hey, it's not time for that, Lavinia. Let's convince Papa again. This time with real reason. I looked up at Papa. He was silent. Papa. I whispered. He closed his eyes with a soft sigh. Lavinia, don't start again. I stayed quiet. Just breathing. Just listening to his heartbeat under my cheek. Then, in a small voice, gentler this time, I said, I really want to go. He didn't answer, but I could feel him listening. Not because of wolves or portals, I murmured. I want to see the place that belonged to my birth mother. And where Grandpa lives. His arms tightened around me just a little. It's part of me, right? I whispered. I want to understand it. Even just a little. You always say to know where I come from, and I think Nivali is part of that. The silence that followed wasn't cold or stern. It felt heavy, like Papa was carrying something invisible. Maybe memories. Finally he spoke, his voice low and thoughtful. You shouldn't have to carry those things yet, Lavinia. I won't, I said quickly. Not all of it. I just want to see it. His chest rose slowly with a deep breath. You're too clever for your age. I get it from you, I said, smiling into his shirt. He grunted. That's why I'm the emperor. I went quiet and looked up at him. Look at him being all proud of himself. I giggled softly. Then after a pause he said it, quietly, like he was handing me a piece of the sun. All right. I blinked. Really? But you'll come back in one day. One. I frowned. How about 5 days? He raised an eyebrow. 1.5. I slowly raised 3 fingers. How about 3? He narrowed his eyes. 2. Deal. I beamed. He pulled the blanket over both of us and muttered, 2 night groups will go with you. And stay with your grandpa the whole time. All right, I nodded and nuzzled closer, whispering, thank you, Papa. My heart fluttered in my chest. I was so excited I could barely stay still. This would be my first time going beyond the grand, towering walls of the Imperial Palace. My first real adventure. And not just anywhere, but to Navali. The land of ancient forests, silver-tipped mountains, and rivers that glowed with stardust at night. A place where magic danced in the air, where elves walked among flowers that bloomed only under moonlight, and where Grandpa Thalion ruled with his shiny armor and loud laugh. I couldn't wait to see it all. To breathe in the wild wind of the north. To feel the crunch of magical grass beneath my boots. To maybe, just maybe, ride a deer. As Papa held me close, his warmth was steady and grounding. And just like that, sleep took me, with dreams full of portals, shiny forests, and a kingdom waiting in the middle of the forest. Lavinia's POV. Somewhere between dreamland and the realm of itchy pajamas, I stirred. My eyelids fluttered open. One eye. Then the other. But only halfway. Like my brain sent the command wake up, but the rest of me replied, new soul loading, please wait. Why? Did I wake up? I blinked into the darkness and rubbed my eyes, mumbling, all right, let's get some pudding. Motivation, 100. Coordination, 0. I tried to sit up. But instead just wiggled like a possessed dumpling stuck in a blanket burrito. Ugh. Body. Come on, I whined, flopping back onto my pillow with the elegance of a dropped cabbage. Something felt off. Like my soul hadn't fully clicked into place. Maybe the Wi-Fi between my soul and this body was lagging. But then, like a miracle sent by the desert gods themselves, an image popped in front of me. Pudding. Golden. Tiny. Wiggle wobble. I could hear it calling me. All right, let's go. I rolled to the edge of the bed with the grace of a walrus on a water slide, flopped my legs down, and was about to sneak off like a pudding ninja when... Where are you going? I flinched so hard I nearly fell off the bed. Damn it. There he was. Reclining on his side like a model in a dramatic oil painting, propped up on one hand, watching me like a predator eyeing a squirrel. My back straightened like a guilty noodle. I laughed nervously. Why, Papa? I was just, My eyes darted around. Doing my midnight stretches. He stared. Like, tired. Unimpressed. Then, eating pudding in the middle of the night is not good. Get back on the bed. He caught me. Why does he always know what I am about to do? But, Papa. I clutched my little chest dramatically. If I don't eat pudding right now, the pudding ghost will haunt me for the rest of the night. I let my voice wobble for effect. Add a hint of tragedy. Just enough guilt to crack a grown man. Papa blinked slowly. His expression? Somewhere between I have regrets and how is this child mine? Then with the heaviest sigh known to mankind, he sat up, tied his robe tighter with the resigned dignity of a man who had accepted his fate and said, all right, let's go. Wait, what? It worked? Victory. Grinning, I grabbed his hand like a goblin who just stole a treasure and skipped toward the door with him. When we stepped out, Ravik was still there, standing guard with the alertness of someone who had clearly seen things. He bowed. Your Majesty. Princess. Do you require anything? I beamed. We are going to have pudding, Ravik. He blinked. Twice. At this hour? I nodded proudly. It's pudding o'clock. He hesitated. Then carefully, as if navigating a minefield, he said, but Princess, aren't you on a diet? I flinched. Damn it. And then Papa, ever calm, simply looked at Ravik and said with the straightest face in existence, she is a pig. And a pig never stops eating. What? Papa. I gasped. You cannot say that to your daughter. He looked down at me. No blink. No remorse. I can say anything to my daughter. I stared at him, scandalized. Dumbfounded. Offended on behalf of all daughters everywhere. What kind of warped emperor logic was that? I should have stomped my foot. I should have puffed my chest, turned around dramatically, and marched straight back to bed like a noble lady of pride and principle. But I really needed that pudding. So my dignity, trashed, burned, left behind like yesterday's vegetables. Now I was sitting cross-legged on a silk-cushioned chair in the royal kitchen, swinging my legs happily, cheeks stuffed with creamy vanilla pudding as if I hadn't just been insulted by my own father. Bliss. The pudding wobbled on my spoon with each shake of joy. I kicked my feet under the table, humming like a content squirrel. The royal night chef had even added extra caramel drizzle. Truly the gods were kind. Papa sat beside me sipping a cup of probably bitter tea, while watching me with that unreadable dad face. Somewhere between, I'm judging you, and, this is my life now. Without taking his eyes off me, he asked, is the preparation done for Nivali? Ravik answered immediately, yes, your majesty. Day after tomorrow we'll depart at dawn. Papa hummed thoughtfully, setting down his cup. Then, like it was the most natural thing in the world, he leaned over and wiped a crumb of pudding from the corner of my mouth. And then he said it. Why do I have a feeling that you'll come back from Nivali as a real pig? I choked. Literally choked. Cough, Papa, you. I slammed my tiny palm on the table like a furious aristocrat betrayed by her own flesh and blood. Papa, are you sure you're my papa? We might need to get tested because I'm starting to have doubts. Papa raised an eyebrow, completely unfazed by my righteous outburst. With a glint in his eyes that screamed, I'm enjoying this, he asked, am I saying something wrong? Then he pointed. He pointed. His imperial finger hovered above my now empty pudding plate. You've already eaten 4 plates. And that's your 5th. I looked down at the spoon in my hand. Then the plate. Then back at him. Betrayal. I slapped the spoon down and pointed back at him, equally dramatic. That's because it's tasty, okay? It's tasty. Ravik blinked in the background, probably trying not to laugh hard. Papa leaned back in his chair, sipping his tea again like a smug cat. It's a miracle you're not round yet. I am round. I shouted proudly, puffing out my cheeks and belly. I'm round in the cute way, like a mochi. Papa raised an eyebrow. More like a rice ball. Excuse you. I'm just being honest. Okay. I can't with this man. He sipped the last of his tea, like it was wine and he was a philosopher who just won an argument, then stood up and casually picked me up like I weighed nothing. You're heavy. I gasped. Audibly. Like he just told me Santa Claus was a lie. I beg your pardon. I shrieked, kicking my legs like a chaotic windmill. Put me down. Get me down. Right now. No, he said simply. Just, no. Not even a we'll talk about this later. Not a when we get to your room. Just a straight up no, like he had all the authority in the world, which fine maybe he did being the emperor and all, but still. He smirked, the evil smugness of a father who knew he had ultimate power over his daughter. And so I was carried, kicking, wiggling and still very much sticky from pudding, back to the chamber. Dignity? Gone. Belly? Full. Heart? Stupidly, happily, annoyingly full. After arriving at our chamber, Papa laid me on the bed like I was a sacred offering to the gods of bedtime. Then he lay down beside me. Instantly, I scooted to the very edge of the bed like I was a citizen during a pandemic. Distance. Must maintain distance. I might as well have built a wall of pillows labeled, do not cross, baby border patrol. Come here, Papa said. I turned my head the other way and huffed. No. Then came the threat. The most unspeakable, unforgivable, horrifying threat. Come here, he said again, or I'll send Chef Aloan back to Nivali. What? I gasped so loud I nearly sucked the moonlight out of the room. Why are you like this? I croaked, scandalized. What kind of father uses putting chefs as leverage? He didn't even blink. A strategic one. You would say that. I sighed. Fine, you win. Dignity, still dead, so I rolled over, grumpy and muttering like an old cat, and tucked myself beside him. And then, he was so warm. What is this? A portable furnace? A royal human heater? His body heat was illegal level cozy. I didn't want to admit it, but I might have melted a little. He patted my head, calm and lazy, as if he hadn't just emotionally blackmailed me 2 seconds ago. Don't ever forget, he murmured, that you're the sole princess and next empress of the Ilarian Empire. Huh. Where did that come from? We were just talking about pudding 5 minutes ago. I blinked up at him. I know that, Papa, I said, totally confused. He continued, his voice smooth and serious like he was giving war orders. If you find anyone in Nivali who dares to look down on you, tell Ravik to execute them. I choked. Papa. He raised an eyebrow. What? You can't just go around executing people for looking at me weird at the Elven Kingdom. They'll be seeing a beautiful human like me for the first time too. I can. You shouldn't. Then he sighed as if I were the one being unreasonable here. With the most casual tone in the world, he continued, "Anyway, in case something happens that you don't like." He didn't even blink. "Execute them." I stared at him, completely dumbfounded. I wanted to argue. I wanted to say, "Papa, no, that's not how diplomacy works." But then again, this was the man who threatened a chef for putting leverage, so I sighed and flopped back into the warmth. But I think he is worried. Because this is the first time I'm leaving his side. Maybe it's only 2 days, but it'll feel like months or years. Fine. Understood. And in that moment, as I nestled into my terrifying, overprotective, slightly deranged father's side, a tiny spark of excitement bubbled in my chest. I couldn't wait to see the people of Navali. Lavinia's POV. "Nanny. I'm telling you," I groaned as she tugged the sleeve of my red frock for the 10th time, "the wind's going to mess it up anyway." Nanny didn't even blink. She just dusted off imaginary lint from the skirt and said in that calm but scary tone of hers, "I know, princess. But this is your first official journey outside the imperial palace. You must look proper." "I'm a kid, Nanny. They'll forgive me," I declared, trying to wriggle out of her grip. She tightened the belt with military precision. "Even if you're a kid, you're still the princess. And one day the empress. So, must proper. Dot." I sighed dramatically and flopped onto the couch like a dying swan. I should never forget that no one can win against a mother. Not even me, a princess. Outside, the palace buzzed. Maids running, guards lining up, and people whispering about the princess's first official journey. Not that I was eavesdropping. It was my very first journey through the magic portal. Destination: Navali, the land of elves hidden deep within the ancient forests. A magical place straight out of storybooks, where the trees whispered secrets and the people had pointy ears and prettier hair than me. Also, tiny detail, I felt like an Avenger. If sparkly portals and epic goodbyes weren't peak superhero material, I didn't know what was. And then, "Are you ready?" Papa's voice cut through the chamber like hot cocoa on a cold morning. Nanny jumped into formality mode so fast I almost got whiplash. She bowed neatly and said, "The princess is ready, Your Majesty." Papa stepped inside, wearing a sleek black coat with silver embroidery. His long hair was tied back and he looked like he was about to attend a royal ball or commit murder. No in-between. I, being the mature 5-year-old that I am, twirled in my red frock and flared it like a dramatic flower. "How do I look? Pretty, right?" Papa paused. He blinked. Then he tilted his head like he was examining an abstract painting. "Not bad. Not bad." I froze. "Papa," I said, my voice scandalized. "Papa, look properly. I look pretty. Say it." I jumped up and down like a bunny on sugar. "You're supposed to say I'm the cutest in the empire." He raised one eyebrow, arms crossed like some overly strict teacher in a fairy tale. "A ruler shouldn't fish for compliments. Then consider this a royal decree," I declared, pointing a chubby finger right at him. "You should look properly, Papa. I'm pretty. Say it." Papa's lip twitched. Oh, he was amused. I could see it, the tiniest sparkle in his scary emperor eyes. He watched me hop like a bunny on a sugar high, then finally gave in. Bending down, he rubbed my cheeks, squishing them like mochi, and kissed my forehead. "My daughter is the prettiest in the empire." I beamed. I knew it. Because she got my looks. I blinked, paused, and sighed. Well, he's not wrong. I mean, facts were facts. I was basically a tiny, cuter version of Papa. Same golden hair, same red eyes, same resting scary face. Since he was dangerously handsome, it only made sense that I was outrageously pretty. Then Papa gave me that look, the one that screamed overprotective tyrant mode. His gaze sharpened like he was about to declare war on a bakery for selling stale bread. "Remember," he said, voice all dark and dramatic, "if anyone dares to bully you or offend you, just tell Ravik to execute them." I stared at him. Deadpan. "Papa, do you seriously think anyone can bully me that easily?" Then I narrowed my eyes, channeling my inner villainess, and said in a cold voice, "Don't worry, Papa. If anyone offends me, I'll punish them myself." Papa nodded, proud as if I'd just conquered a kingdom. "Good." Satisfied, I puffed my cheeks like I was royalty, which I am, and strutted toward the chamber doors with all the grace of a pint-sized general. "Let's go." Navali's waiting. Avengers, assemble. Papa tilted his head. Avengers? What is that? A noble house. I didn't even stop walking. They're a group of superheroes who save people from monsters and aliens. Papa frowned. If they're that powerful, why haven't I met them? I grinned. Because they're fictional. He stopped mid-step. Blinking. So you made up powerful warriors and got excited about them? Exactly. He looked like he aged 10 years in 2 seconds and sighed heavily. I just giggled and skipped ahead. Oh, if he thought this was strange, wait until he hears about multiverses. I dashed out of the palace like a shooting star on sugar, my little red shoes squeaking dramatically across the marble path. The garden was already buzzing with knights in shiny armor, servants panicking about protocol, and a man in a robe whose vibe screamed, "I'm a powerful archmage, fear me." But I wasn't interested in any of that. Because, Grandpa... I spotted Grandpa Thalion and launched myself like a missile straight into his arms. Grandpa immediately knelt, arms wide open like the overly dramatic hero he believed himself to be. "Oh, my precious sunshine dipped in stardust, come to Grandpa." I crashed into his hug, giggling as he dramatically clutched his chest like he'd just seen the love of his life. "Oh my cheeky peekaboo, you look so beautiful today," he said with a flourish that made 3 knights physically flinch. I giggled. Around us, the soldiers, Ravik, and even the archmage stared with the dead-eyed exhaustion of people who'd witnessed too much. Even Papa looked like he was about to throttle something. He stepped forward and, without warning, scooped me right out of Grandpa's arms like a grumpy crane machine. "Stop damaging my daughter's brain," he muttered, holding me like a grumpy cat. "She can't take this level of cliché. Her tiny skull's still developing." Grandpa shot him a glare. "She's my granddaughter, Cassius. She'll never get bored of me." Then he turned back to me, eyes instantly going soft like melted pudding. "Right, my cheeky peeky boo?" I nodded with a big smile and said, "I love Grandpa." Papa went deadpan. Grandpa smirked like a victorious gremlin. "See? Told you. She has excellent taste." Papa looked at me like he was seriously questioning every choice that led to my creation. And I shrugged. I mean, what could I do? People loved me. Loudly. Dramatically. Everyone had their own way to show love, right? Papa sighed heavily, then turned to the group of knights standing stiff as statues. His eyes narrowed like a hawk spotting a mouse. "All of you," he said, his voice dropping to the depth of murder. "Take care of the princess." He stepped forward, holding me close like I was the crown jewel of the empire, and he was not wrong. "If I see so much as a scratch on her," he said, tone low and cold, "I will personally make sure each one of you regrets your birth." Boom. All the knights dropped to one knee at once, their voices echoing through the garden. "We will protect the princess with our lives, Your Majesty." My ears rang. My ego swelled. Grandpa chuckled and turned to the robed man who had been respectfully pretending not to exist. "It's time." The archmage nodded, raising his hands. Magic surged around him in beautiful glowing patterns, lighting up the air like fairy dust. And then, with a whoosh that nearly knocked over a pot of roses, a gigantic portal swirled open. "Whoa!" I gasped, eyes wide, mouth even wider. The portal was a shimmering oval of glowing light, layered in runes and swirling with colors I didn't even have names for. It buzzed with energy and smelled faintly of old books and adventure. I turned to Grandpa, eyes wide and sparkling like someone who just discovered cake for the first time. "Grandpa, is this how you travel? No carriages? No horses? Just whoosh." Grandpa puffed up like a peacock on parade. "That's right, my little jelly bean. This is the ancient, majestic magic of Navali. Elegant. Efficient. Woo." I whispered in awe, practically glowing. Behind me, Papa muttered just loud enough for my ears to catch it. "Is he luring my daughter with sparkly nonsense?" Then Grandpa, smug as ever, sauntered toward him, arms outstretched like he was about to receive a sacred treasure. "Come now, hand her over." There was a brief silence. A tense, manly silence filled with unspoken threats, warnings, and the weight of fatherhood. Then finally Papa said quietly, "Take care of her." Grandpa smiled, gentle and sure. "You really don't have to tell me. I know exactly what not to do." Papa raised an eyebrow like he wasn't so sure that was comforting. Then he turned to me, his usual stern expression melting like ice cream under the sun. He leaned down and kissed my forehead, his voice soft. Take care. I beamed and threw my arms around his neck, kissing his cheeks loudly. Moi moi. Don't worry, Papa. I'll be back before you know it. And when I come back I'll tell you every story. So you better take notes. Papa smiled, that rare warm smile that only belonged to me. Then reluctantly he handed me over to Grandpa like he was passing along a priceless royal artifact. Grandpa took me into his arms like I was a victory prize and turned toward the swirling portal of magic, and behind me chaos followed. But ahead was Nivali, land of elves, forest wonders, twinkly magic, and my first step into a story far bigger and shinier than I ever imagined. With one last glance back at Papa, we stepped into the light. Lavinia's POV. Kingdom of Nivali. We stepped out of the magic portal, and, boo, wait, hold on. I blinked. Then blinked again. Then frowned. Where are the trees? Instead of finding myself in an enchanted forest bursting with glowing flowers and birds that sang in harmony, I was staring at an estate. A very large, very clean, very normal-looking estate. You know, with windows and stone walls and actual doors instead of tree bark or magical vines or floating cloud entrances or whatever it was I thought elves lived in. I whipped my head toward Grandpa Thalion, completely, utterly, tragically betrayed. Grandpa, I said with the seriousness of someone who had just discovered Santa wasn't real, where are the trees? Grandpa tilted his head, slightly amused. Trees. Yes, I said, throwing my hands up. Weren't you supposed to live in some majestic forest home? You know, tree houses, wooden bridges, owls that deliver mail. He blinked at me like he wasn't quite sure if I was joking or genuinely confused. Then he chuckled. A deep, elegant, grandpa with a secret kind of chuckle. He reached over and gently ruffled my hair. My precious star. Did you think we lived in trees like squirrels? I scowled, swatting at his hand half-heartedly. That's not what I said. But yes. Kind of. A little. He smiled, clearly entertained. Oh, my sweetheart. We live in buildings. Just like humans. We're not woodland creatures. But you could be, I muttered. He ignored me. We're a kingdom. A proper one. The only difference is we use magic and we have longer ears. That's all. I stared at the estate again. No floating lights. No tree houses. No whispering flowers. Just well-maintained courtyards, a big stone mansion and some neatly trimmed hedges. Very civilized. Very non-magical. The only magic here was how thoroughly my expectations had been obliterated. I pouted. I thought I'd see little fairies and leaves glowing and maybe a deer that speaks fluent Elvish. Morella placed a gentle hand on her cheek, trying and failing to hide her smile. My princess. Those things only exist in fairy tales. I crossed my arms and narrowed my eyes at the gravel path beneath my feet like it had personally betrayed me. I shouldn't have believed those fairy tales, I mumbled, deeply offended by every bedtime story ever told to me. Grandpa let out another warm, rumbling chuckle, clearly enjoying my disappointment a little too much. My precious star, he said, crouching down to my level with a look of exaggerated sympathy. I don't know what exactly you were expecting. Perhaps a flying squirrel serving moonberry tea, but I promise you Nivali will still surprise you. Maybe not with floating fairies or talking trees, but with a kind of magic that's older, wiser, quieter, and deeper than anything found in a storybook. I eyed him skeptically, poking his cloak with one finger. I hope so. And then, before I could ask whether deer at least understand Elvish, a group of elves came bursting out of the estate like they'd just heard a royal inspection was happening in 5 minutes. Maids in flowing pastel uniforms, footmen with silver trim on their coats, and at least one poor guy who looked like he ran the whole way from the kitchen with flowers still on his apron. They lined up quickly, bowed low in perfect unison, and in voices sweet and melodic enough to rival a choir said, "Welcome to Ilariandil Estate, Princess Lavinia." I blinked. Then blinked again. Well, that was dramatic. Just as I was still trying to process the sea of elves bowing before me like I was some ancient goddess descending from the clouds, my eyes caught a particular figure, and I shrieked. Gah! There, lurching toward us, was what could only be described as a dead walking elf. No, really. Pale as snow, eyes sunken with the kind of dark circles that could qualify as war paint, and movements so stiff he looked like a haunted marionette. If it weren't for the subtle twitch in his eye and the faint scent of peppermint tea, I would have assumed we were being greeted by a literal corpse. Naturally, I latched onto Grandpa like a koala on caffeine. Grandpa. It's a zombie. A dead elf. Grandpa narrowed his eyes at the poor man and sighed dramatically. Fairlan, you're scaring my precious granddaughter. The zombie straightened up. Well, as much as someone who hadn't seen a full night of sleep in what appeared to be a decade could manage, and gave a stiff but graceful bow. So that was Fairlan? Damn it. He really looked like a ghost doing cosplay. Before I could whisper another protest, Grandpa gently patted my head, his voice dripping with reassurance. It's all right, my precious star. He's not undead. He's just the butler. I squinted up at Grandpa suspiciously. Butler. He looked more like an ancient cursed elf who rose from the tomb. Fairlan, ever the professional, smiled, or attempted to. Came out more like a twitch. Welcome back, my lord. And welcome to Nivali, Princess Lavinia, he said with a deep, practiced bow that looked like it required every remaining ounce of his soul. I blinked up at him and mumbled under my breath, Are you sure he's not dead, Grandpa? Without missing a beat, Fairlan responded, voice hoarse but oddly elegant. Do not worry, Princess. I'm alive. Barely. Just exhausted. Then came the dramatic pause. Since my lord has been away tending to royal duties in Ilarion, he glanced subtly at Grandpa. All his work has been rerouted to me. Entirely. For the last few months. I looked from Fairlan's corpse-like expression to Grandpa's very much not guilty face. So he did Grandpa's work. And since Grandpa had been practically living in Ilarion for the past 2 years just to see me, that meant he's been handling all Grandpa's work when Grandpa runs to see me. Out of nowhere, the image of my stingy old boss from my past life popped into my head. That wrinkly gremlin who thought overtime was a bonding opportunity. The man who once told me, sleep is optional when you have deadlines. PTSD activated. I gave Fairlan a solemn nod of respect. You, sir, are a warrior. A martyr. A true legend among the oppressed working class. Fairlan gave a slight bow again. You are too kind, Princess. Grandpa chuckled as he led me toward the estate doors. Don't worry, my precious. I'll let Fairlan take a vacation, after he finishes cataloging the entire estate's archives. Fairlan twitched. I gasped. Grandpa, that's elf abuse. Work builds character, Grandpa replied smugly. He doesn't even feel guilty. And then Grandpa said with a gentle smile, let us head inside. We stepped through the large double doors and, whoa. So maybe it wasn't a floating castle or a glowing forest treehouse dripping with fairy lights and talking raccoons like I'd imagined. But still, the inside of the Ilariondale estate was ridiculously pretty. Warm ivory walls rose into vaulted ceilings etched with flowing elven patterns, like vines reaching for the sky. Golden chandeliers hung like sunlit droplets, casting a soft, magical glow across polished wood floors, so shiny I could see my tiny, grumpy reflection. Massive windows framed in curling leaves let in golden sunlight that bathed the hall in a dreamy warmth. Elegant plants lined the space, ferns in crystal vases, orchids in corners, and ivy spiraling down the staircase like it was dancing. And right smack in the middle of the estate, a tree. A giant, sparkly, silvery white tree that grew straight up into the ceiling like it owned the place. Its bark shimmered like moonlight and soft wind chimes hung from its branches, singing gentle notes that made me want to nap and eat cookies at the same time. There was even a little circular bench wrapped around its base, like some kind of sacred elf picnic zone. Wow. I whispered, my eyes wide. It's beautiful. Behind us, Fairlan murmured in his hauntingly zombie butler voice. The great tree in the hall is over 400 years old. Planted by His Grace himself. Grandpa nodded proudly. It was just a sapling when I first built this estate. I turned and blinked up at him. You built it. He shrugged like it was no big deal. Well, I designed it. Had a vision. Drew a few sketches. Then left it to the architects. Oh sure. Just casually design a magical elven palace in your spare time. Elf grandpa things, I guess. And I told the kitchen to prepare 5 kinds of cookies and 3 kinds of pudding, Grandpa added smoothly, like he was dropping the most important royal decree of the day. I stared up at him, jaw slightly dropped. You are my favorite, Grandpa. Nanny cleared her throat from behind us, her voice as crisp as ever. Let's all get settled first, my princess. There will be plenty of time to explore after your meal. I pouted dramatically. Exploring is the meal of the curious heart, Nanny. She raised one perfectly shaped brow. And cookies are the meal of spoiled children. Fair point. Grandpa chuckled beside me, his deep voice like a lullaby wrapped in velvet. Rest first, my precious. You'll be meeting your cousins soon, and I believe one of them has been waiting very eagerly. I tilted my head suspiciously. Cousins? I have cousins. You'll see, he said with that annoyingly cryptic elf smile. Now I was both excited and extremely nervous. What kind of elf cousin was waiting for me? Please don't be another zombie.